M here again. This is part 2 of the appropriation bill. We continue with Mr. Henry Ford. On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I hate to interrupt the honourable member, but he fails to take into account two matters, and he is not fairly representing the position. He has to discount the fact that 13 taxes were abolished, and he has to make a discount for the fact that there was a tremendous increase in economic activity, which would bring with it an increase in the level of taxes. Mr. Dennis Kellman. Under the normal circumstances, the 378,629,330 would have included those taxes and duties of which the honourable member is speaking. These taxes were replaced, and by 1997 to 1998, they then moved to 722,980,494. The honourable member is asking me to make this significant point. In 1994, the Democratic Labour Party found the social partnership in a situation where there was no connection between the private sector, the public sector, and the workers. We were able to put a policy in place where we brought together as a group under an understanding that they would have all shared in the bounty of the land. What one has seen is that the two partners remained together, the workers dropped out. Mr. Speaker, after 1997 to 1998, there was the public sector and the private sector working hand in hand, while one got an increase of 98%. The private sector was able to get an increase of over 105%, and the workers dropped away from the relationship. That is exactly what has happened. That is why I was warning the trade union movement in this country that even though the revenue of government and the private sector are being built up, they still have to look after the wages of the workers. All of us know about trade liberalization and globalization, and that would have been mergers which would have seen a relationship in which the private sector would have looked after their own interests, but the interests of the workers would not have been protected. The trade union movement and the people of Barbados should have listened to me, but they did not. What we are seeing today, the honourable member for St. Michael North East got up and admitted, quite rightly so, that after making super profits in this country, large corporations in Barbados are displacing workers, even after these corporations were asked to enter into a prices and incomes protocol. That is why the situation where workers are now dictating to the unions the path that the unions should take. It will be a long time before the unions in this country can have control over the workers again, because the workers have recognized the point which I am making. What I have been protecting the unions and the social partners in this country from the same situation where the workers believe, and rightly so, that they have been taken for a ride, whereas governments and the private sector were able to put aside revenue and profits respectively. The workers had nothing to put aside. If one looks at the study that has just been completed, one would have recognized that the workers have spent all of their disposable income to survive and have nothing left to save. I'm saying that we have a situation that government spent in 1993 to 1994 $390.8 million on wages and salaries. 1994 to 1995, $400.1 million. 1995 to 1996, $424.2 million. 1996 to 1997, $438.9 million. 1997 to 1998, $490.6 million. 1998 to 1999, $516.5 million. 1999 to 2000, $565.5 million. 2000 to 2001, $586.3 million. 2001 to 2002, $605 million. Sir, when one looks at the ratio, in 1995 the workers had 2.38% in wage increase. 1995 to 1996, 8.55%. 1996 to 1996, 12.31%. 1997 to 1998, 125.54%. 1998 to 1999, 32.16%. 1999 to 2000, 44.65%. 2000 to 2001, 50%. And 2001 to 2002, 54.81%. Sir, let us match the 54.81% from 2001 to 2002 to the 97% increase for government on its taxes for goods and services, and also the 98% on incomes and profits. When one looks at the total revenue of government, one would recognize that it has increased by 70%, whereas the workers were not able to match that growth in their income. Mr. Speaker, the profits of the private sector went up by 105.9%. What is also interesting is that this is used on a current expenditure basis. In 1994, when the Democratic Labour Party left the government, the workers of Barbados were taking home 34.4% of current expenditure. Honorable A.P. Wood. On point of order, Mr. Speaker, I have been sitting here listening to the Honorable Member for St. Lucie trying his best to make a contribution, but he is all over the place and his analysis is lacking in coherence and in direction, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Member for St. Lucie, by a strange utterance a few minutes ago, is seeking to give the impression that there should be a policy that wages should be indexed with government current revenue when he said there was an increase of 70% over a time period and the wages did not increase commensurately. Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the Honorable Member for St. Lucie that out of all the nonsense I've heard in here, this is the highest. The Speaker. Please, you cannot refer to the Honorable Member's speech as nonsense. Please make your point of order. Honorable A.P. Wood. The point of order is that nowhere have I ever heard that there should be a policy of indexation of government current revenue and wages. I think that if the Honorable Member for St. Lucie is not versed in simple matters of this kind, maybe he should seek some clarification or direction from the Honorable Member for St. John, because that is something that is unheard of in here, Mr. the Speaker. What is your point of order? Do you want him to seek some kind of clarification, or that there is no way that this is indexed? Proceed, Mr. Kellman. Mr. Speaker, I want the Honorable Member to remember that this point, because when the trade unions came this year, I do not want to hear that government is telling the trade unions that the revenue has decreased and that there is no basis for increase in wages. The Honorable Member has just said that revenue cannot be used as the basis for wages. Therefore, I am telling the trade union movement that the government cannot use revenue as a basis to stop them from getting the salary increase for the public sector. I thank the Honorable Member for St. Philip South for strengthening the hands of the trade union movement by making that point. Sir, I want to make the substantial point that when the Democratic Labour Party left government, the workers were getting 34.4% of the current expenditure for salaries and wages. Do you believe what happened by 2001? They were only getting 32.4% of current expenditure. We saw the expenses had increased significantly, and out of that increase, the workers did not get any real benefit. Instead of getting a larger share of the budget, what they actually got was a decline. Sir, in 1991, the government borrowed the bullet loan. If we look at page 76 of the Economic and Financial Statistics from the Central Bank for 2003, we will see that the sterling at that time was 4.0584. That meant that the Democratic Labour Party received over 120 million for 30 million pounds. If the Honourable Member for St. Peter, Honourable Henry Ford. On a point of order, sir, if my memory serves me right, the Right Excellent Edward Barrow, the then Honourable Member for St. John, agreed with the view that I took about that loan. The Honourable Member is now in hindsight and saying that if the world's economic financial conditions change, excuse me, and there is a foreign exchange cost reduction, and we benefit from it, that it is now a good loan. Sir, but at the time the loan was taken, that was not the projection, Mr. Kellman. Mr. Speaker, I deal with the facts because I am not an economist. In the accounting field, we deal with actuals and not assumptions. The Democratic Labour Party received over 120 million when they borrowed the bullet loan. Any bank in Bridgetown will tell you that the rate of the pound today is 3.2158. And when we convert the bullet loan, it will have a value of 96 million, and we were criticized wrongly for this loan. If the Honourable Member for St. Peter wanted to make a foreign exchange gain on the particular loan, and he would have only paid 96 million to the central bank for receiving a loan of 120 million, which would be a foreign exchange gain of 23 million, sir, can this be a bad loan? I have said on November 20, 2001 that Parliament is only interested in the interest rates. I am not surprised that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, because he knows what I'm speaking about, but I am surprised at the Honourable Member for St. Philip South because he should know about it. He should understand that in negotiating loans, we don't only deal with interest rates. This loan costs 13.35%, and Parliament believed the rate would have remained the same, but at today's rate, the true interest rate is 10.68% because it's only 80% of the loan, so you have to multiply 13.35 by 0.08 because of the depreciation in the value and the interest rate, which would only be 80% of what would have been paid at the original rate. Mr. Speaker, no one can criticize the Democratic Labour Party for borrowing a bullet loan. The bullet loan to criticize would be the one borrowed by the late Tom Allen's administration when it borrowed on the Japanese yen. Mr. Speaker, order please, members. Whatever the Honourable Member is saying, we still have to listen to him according to the rules of this House. The Honourable Member has 2 minutes to conclude. Mr. Kellman. If honorable members want to understand what happened to the Japanese yen loan, they only need to turn to page 76 of the Economic and Financial Statement and a document put up with the Central Bank of Barbados and follow the flow of the Japanese yen. Sir, the Barbados Labour Party cannot be excused for borrowing badly on the Japanese market because the sugar industry borrowed a loan from CDB, Caribbean Development Bank, had borrowed a bad loan and they passed it on to the sugar industry. When the sugar industry had completed half and paid half of the loan, the principal was still the same as the original amount. And when the Caribbean Development Bank recognized they had a substantial amount of money to service the loan, they passed it on to the poor sugar industry. I challenge the Caribbean Development Bank to deny that they have caused the sugar industry substantial debt because they took a loan borrowed for themselves and passed it on to the sugar industry to repay because the sugar industry wanted finances for the Portville factory. Sir, assumptions can be made, but actual figures cannot be defeated. When I speak in this parliament, I use actual figures and not assumptions. You have to wait for 1 year whenever there is an assumption made, and that is why I wait on the honourable members to make glorified statements, because 1 year after, there will be a document to prove them right or wrong. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I believe I am in space when I'm speaking in this parliament, because it is clear that even though I use actual figures, many cannot follow what I say. I also want to say to this parliament that a decrease in expenditure will not save this country's economy. We need to find money and invest in the productive sectors to help increase the GDP, because we cannot afford at this time to have large sums of foreign reserves and liquidity at the time that we are cutting back on expenditure. We need to cut back on expenditure. That does not increase revenue. We need to increase expenditure that will give higher inputs of income, also to find a system of income. That is what is required at this time. We also need to find a system that will allow the private sector, the workers and government to share fairly in the system. Sir, the system of government we are practicing at the moment is the wrong one. It's stifling the productive people of Barbados, and we need to find a system where more disposable income can be put in the hands of the workers so that the small man and woman can be kept alive in the productive sector, or else the workers and the small businesses and the small business class will be wiped out. I am not making a speech of the prophet of doom. I am making a speech in the interest of Barbados. Thank you. That's all for now. M.M Out There.